Here we go. We're good? Okay. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, welcome to this hybrid regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Providing translation this evening are Claudia Lindgren and Paul Huertas. I will allow the translators an opportunity to explain how to use the interpreting feature on Zoom.
Thank you. Buenas tardes a todos. Los servicios de interpretación en español van a estar disponibles de una manera simultánea. En unos momentos se va a encender el icono de interpretación que ustedes lo pueden ver en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Ustedes van a notar un globo terráqueo o un símbolo de mundo. Favor de hacer un clic o un chasqueo y se les va a proporcionar la opción de utilizar el español. Hagan otro clic y de esa manera disfrutan de esta junta simultáneamente. Estamos a la orden. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Lisa Pelosi, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Laura Simon, Sean Mora, and Jean Marie Wolfe. Student representative to the board is with us tonight, Ms. Carolyn Wagner. I would also like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Mr. Ruben Aurelio, Chief Academic and Human Resources Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official, Mrs. Andy Stubbs, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Magical, and Executive Assistant to Chief Academic Human Resource Officer, Ms. Melissa Hansen. Additional district and site administrators are joining us in the audience this evening. We have the Director in Curriculum, Ms. Mary Allen, St. Helena High School Principal, Mr. Benjamin Cinto, RLS Middle School Principal, Ms. Corinne Cox. I see the Elementary School Principal, Dr. Emery is here. And everybody else, thank you for being here this evening. We are delighted that you are viewing in person, on Zoom, on television channel 27, or on our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.stalenaunified.org. In connection with item 4A, the board received information and provided staff with direction. Please join me in the flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 6A is public comments at board meetings. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on items not on the agenda? Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. My name is Anna Shuto, and I'm here as the parent of a 7th and 5th grader, both at RLS and the elementary school. I am concerned about the negative impact social media and smartphone use can have on students' ability to focus and learn and connect with others in the classroom. I know it's a part of life now. I know that it can also be used as an important educational tool sometimes. The problem with smartphones is that you can be distracted by dings and text messages and other, just that instinct to get on social media. The data is increasingly clear on the damage social media can have on our youth's mental health, so much so that Seattle's public school district filed a lawsuit against big tech, claiming that the companies were responsible for a worsening mental health crisis among students and directly affected the school's ability to carry out their educational mission. We see well, I won't go into that tonight, but I would like to ask just simply tonight that the school board look at the high school cell phone policy use and we can have a conversation and involve parents. This is something just informally in the community that comes up amongst parents that we're surprised to hear that you can use cell phones in the classroom, and I know that there's arguments for why that happens. That doesn't happen at RLS. So we would like to be able to compare and contrast. We know there's a difference in age, and there could be many reasons for that. So we just want the ability to be able to look at it and have a say now. And the reason I'm coming is because I saw the clock ticking in terms of my own kids coming to the high school, and I am happy to work on things after the fact and help the kids behind. But I just thought, why not? So that's why I'm here tonight. Thank you so much for considering it and possibly putting on a future agenda.
Maybe not shockingly, I'm also here to talk about the cell phone policy at the high school. So I'm Alexandra Boving Allen, and I also have a 5th grader at the elementary school and a 7th grader at the RLS. And similarly to Anna, who just commented prior, it's something that I have started thinking about as a parent of a child who's coming up on high school years, and as we've started having more and more conversations in our family and within the community around the impact of smartphone use and social media. I'm a clinical child psychologist, and so follow the data very closely around social media use. And while there can be positive benefits, there are certainly increasingly concerning data around negative impact of social media use and texting being a distracting cognitive feature when you're attempting to have your attention in a unified way in a learning environment. Just even having the device in sight or in reach with the dings, or just knowing that texts could be coming in that you're not monitoring can can divide attention, and cognitive process can be interrupted. So I like the RLS policy of phones are not part of the learning environment. Scheduled breaks from smartphones and social media are suggested by the American Academy of Pediatrics, as well as other boards that care for kids and mental health. So it's hard for kids to establish those breaks when their peers are not taking those breaks, and educational time seems like a natural time that we could help them protect that. So I would love to hear more about the high school policy. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who wishes to publicly comment on items not on the agenda? Ms. Madrigal, we didn't receive anything.
No, we do not have any written public comment on
Okay.
items not on the agenda. We do have an audience member. If anyone cares to comment on items not on the agenda, please hover towards the bottom of your screen and raise your virtual hand. There's no public comment on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for speaking this evening. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7A, presentation by the student representative. Ms. Carolyn Wagner, please.
Good evening. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to highlight our winter sports. So this is my athletics update. Winter sports have increased student participation from 61 students last year to 128 this year, which I can directly correlate to the change between fall soccer to now winter soccer. I think this is evident that the change has benefited all students at the school. So I'm very happy and pleased to see that, and I would like to thank our athletic director for giving me this information and the data, and also proposing that we switch. Fall sports have also benefited from the change. Cheer and cross country have gotten a lot more members, so all around every sport has benefited from the switch. It also gives our students an opportunity to play more sports and connect with each other, which is always great. Wrestling had their tri-meet with 3 other schools in attendance, and the senior wrestlers were highlighted, which you will see in the photo in the next slide. And then I would also like to congratulate the girls basketball team for breaking a 9-year league losing streak. They get harassed by the boys basketball, and they really stuck it to them, so really hats off to them, because that's great. And then this semester in leadership, we have 4 major focuses, so school spirit, equity, communication, and community feeling and engagement. So we're dividing the class based off of all sorts of different projects where we're really trying to aim at those 4 goals this semester. Next slide, please. So here's senior night wrestling, and it was a really good turnout, which was great to see for wrestling because you don't always think that people would show up. Next slide, please. So at the RLS this month, well, a very short month, ASB got together and confirmed the date for the Valentine's Day dance, which is very popular. Dances are in right now, which is great for the kids. So they were very excited about that and about potential dates. And then all the teachers really just getting back into the flow of things, so they were having all these fun projects. I got to sit in on Miss Shear's math class, and they got to measure each other in centimeters, and I actually got to get measured. And it's just nice to see when things are applicable to life, like your height, and making math fun, because sometimes it can feel hard and difficult and just, you know, it's not always easy being in class 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day, so it's nice to switch it up. And then Miss Helwig similarly was doing projects with dirt, so they had to use all their 5 senses and smell and eyesight and everything. So it was just nice to see the kids connect with each other and laugh and joke around after the break. And also similarly with Miss Vicky's class, they were just coming up with these crazy ways to work out. They were pushing each other with their legs, and it was their partner's body weight. And it's just very different from when I was in middle school. So it was nice to see some creative juices flowing, but just transitioning from break to academic mode. Next slide, please. So here you can see actually one of my friends get measured with Miss Shear and Miss Helwig's soil activity, which was also really fun. At the elementary school, it was very interesting. I was really glad to hear that they're coming up with kind of a mini student council. So I think that's an exciting new development, and I think that it's going to force the kids to really take on some new maturity and independence and create a new culture at the elementary school. I think they're looking forward to a lot more time outside and just maybe some sunshine after all this rain. They've been working on recycling snowmen, which I thought was really interesting, and they're super good at recycling. Like, the high school was terrible in comparison to them. They have like 3 bins in the cafeteria. They separate everything. I was extremely impressed. I don't think I could go there and do that correctly. So I was very impressed with them. Next slide, please. So here you see rainy day activities, which I got to go on a rainy day and see what they do. And they play spoons and cards, and everybody's just cohesively playing, and it was really great. And then their New Year's resolutions, which is always fun to see. So at the primary school, we also have New Year's resolutions, and it's nice to see the children thinking about short and long term, because sometimes it's all very short term. So they were focusing on what they want to learn and skills they want to develop, and it was just really great to see like all these creative things that they were coming up with. Someone wanted to learn about a ladybug, someone wants to count to 100, someone wants to be an investigator. So it was really excited to see them smile and think of all the fun things that they want to do this year. And they have individual classes that support those goals and those ideas. So they have their music classes and their STEM classes where they can focus on one thing for a period of time and then move on and then continue to do that day after day. So I think that's really great for the kids. Next slide, please. Here you can see their New Year's projects, which are always very cute and fun.
Very much. Trustees, any questions or clarifications for Carolyn?
I appreciated your entire report, but especially the information about the winter sports and the increase in student participation from 61 to 128. I mean, that's huge.
I really felt like those numbers were staggering, and I was just looking at them, and I was like, this was truly great for every single student athlete, not only for the kids who are switching over, but for the athletes that are already in that sport, because you get so many more people, and it really just enriches the whole experience. So I'm truly really grateful to whoever got to make that decision.
Great, thank you.
And I'm assuming that goes across obviously the whole entire league, right? Everybody switched from fall to winter? Oh no, okay.
We qualified to move up in a league because our soccer team is really good. I wouldn't know as much about soccer, but I think we were at a higher level. I think Miss Moore.
I believe it's just the soccer teams, boys and girls, and it's I don't know when the last time there was a JV girls soccer team.
Okay.
So we have one. We have had an unofficial JV boys soccer team in the past, I believe, and now
Okay.
it's official. We play some of the teams that we used to play in fall, but there are a few that are new.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you as always, Carolyn. Okay, we're going to move on to communications. So 8A is board member report, and I'm going to ask Miss Trustee Simon to take it from here. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Fantastic. Let me find it on here real quick. I have it. Okay. thank you to Principal Cinto. I had a wonderful meeting with him. He spent an hour and a half with me. I was so gracious of his time. And this time, there's so many things to talk about at the high school level. So I really, I think about what I want to talk with him about when I come in or learn about. And so we discussed the EL program, got an update on dual enrollment, and I wanted to learn about leadership because I don't know much about leadership at the high school. So beginning with the EL program, we toured the newcomer class, and the newcomer class has 6 children in it this year, and newcomer means that the students are new to English for up to 3 years. So all of the students in the class have only been speaking English for 1, 2, or 3 years. And the teacher is Kimberly Hurtado, who holds a Spanish and English credential. She's wonderful and warm and kind, and I can tell when we were in the classroom, her students were engaged. I could tell there was a lot of trust with her, and they enjoyed having her as their teacher. And the newcomer class's first period, along with the other English language classes, because those are all considered the English language art period for students that are not fully proficient in English yet, fluent in English. And so especially for the newcomer students, they get that opportunity to be in a environment where they are all learning English together. So it really was a nice experience in there. I'd like to report that the high school now has a new EL coordinator with a release period. So this person is able to support the EL English language art teachers, support the students, the LPAC assessment coordination. So it's been Principal Cinto was sharing with me that it's just lovely to now have an EL coordinator at the high school. Makes a lot of sense. Let's see here. Oh, the inaugural reclassification celebration. They had a wonderful turnout of about 150 people, families and students. They reclassified, so they moved celebrated children who have moved from an English language proficient status to a now fluent English proficiency status. And also celebrated children that are making strides but not yet fluent in that English proficiency status quite yet. And so it was a really wonderful evening of celebration. And also to tell you about the English as a Second Language for Adults program that is partially staffed by our educators and is also seeing a wonderful turnout with parents. So yeah, really nice. Okay, dual enrollment. We had 11 dual enrollment classes. Last year we added 1 more, and it's exciting. There's talk now about expanding it to a dual enrollment band class, music, and also and English. And what did I want to say here? Okay, and I had to learn a lot about dual enrollment because years ago, honors and AP coursework was what I thought of when I thought of additional work that would give you credit. So Mr. Cinto has been very patient with me. So with the dual enrollment coursework, it doesn't require an exam to receive credit. The dual enrollment course is the college level credit that is being taught at the high school level. And this doesn't happen at all high schools. And we're very fortunate that we have 12 of these college level courses at our school and continuing to talk about adding even more. So what does that mean? So as long as a student passes the course, that they then receive the college credit, unlike the AP coursework where you have to take a test to receive that credit. And so it's become increasingly important in the metric within the college and career indicator on the state dashboard, and highly regarded in the college admissions process, especially now that they are removing the ACT and ACT, not making that a requirement. And the fact Mr. Cinto explained to me that, the variability in the AP test score interpretation can vary. So thought that was pretty interesting. Another addition, brand new addition, is Mr. Cinto said that there is the possibility of students earning an AA degree, an Associate of Arts degree upon graduation. It's just in the early talks, perhaps in business and entrepreneurship. So to do that in high school would be very exciting. There's also been beginning talks about Napa Valley College facilitating some summer courses at the St. Helena High School. So lots of higher learning, academic opportunities going on at our high school. Really, really proud about that opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Cinto. And last but not least, leadership, which includes ASB and Student Congress. And leadership is a fourth period elective. And yes, if you're an ASB officer, you have to be in student leadership. And what I wanted to say about this was that I really appreciated the student congress aspect of student leadership. You think, well, what is student congress? We know what ASB is and a leadership elective, but the student congress is at fourth period while the student leadership elective is going on. A representative from every fourth period will come and attend the student leadership, which is then called Student Congress. And it's an opportunity, it's a far more productive way for the student body to be heard. The children learn, okay, this is how we can give input, we can share with our leaders what's working, what's not working, what we want from them. So it's a way to really help children understand that it's not just the ASB officers making decisions and telling the student body what they're going to do. It's the students giving input to the ASB officers, and it's working really well at the high school. So I'm going to stop talking. I've been talking a lot. There's so much to see and do, and thank you, Mr. Cinto. I really appreciate it.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just it was wonderful.
Trustees, any questions for Trustee Simon? Or no? Kudos, Mr. Cinto, for 12 dual enrollment classes. That's pretty awesome. So we need to take a short break for our translators. They're requesting, there might be some technical issues on their end, so I just need to pause the meeting momentarily, please. We'll take a 5-minute break, please.
So we're having serophonies coming to mental or stress management, anxiety, which is sleep, and then we have Angela Baxter who's going to do nutrition along with Carolyn from Blue Zone. So we've been working with her to coordinate this whole thing. They're bringing
Okay, thank you everybody for your patience while we worked out some technical difficulties. We're going to move on to item 8B, which is the superintendent's report. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Good evening, everyone. President Pelosi, trustees, audience, and staff. In tonight's report, as I typically do each month, a quick reflection on the previous month. I will say it was a short month with winter break. Some general updates, and I am going to provide a sort of a mid-year, it is now 6 months in to my tenure so far, update, and then some upcoming events. And at the end of this presentation as well, I have a guest that's going to plug some programming at RLS. Yes, that was my teaser. Now, it was a quiet winter break. We do take 3 weeks off for the students. I'm sure it was very difficult to wake up that Monday morning to return, but I did go around and there were some sleepy eyes, but they were here, which was great to see. I also want to make sure we thank our 12-month employees who don't take the 3 weeks off, who are here working on the buildings, making sure our campuses are clean upon the return. During, I want to say that it was December, early January, I did have an opportunity to meet with the Napa Valley Vine Trail folks, who I believe Mr. McMinn is being honored tonight at an event, in fact, by the chamber. And obviously that is a new thing for me. He brought me up to speed on the progress that's being made on the Vine Trail, and of course our partnership. I know that the board had approved an easement in the front of this building out by the road, so that they're still in the planning phases of that work. But ultimately, we want to see a connection, a bike trail that connects all our schools at some point. We are planning tonight on the agenda. You will see some job descriptions. We are getting into our hiring season, so we will be asking you to approve some updated job descriptions so we can post for our employees who are taking some early retirement incentives, and we will have some positions to fill. So far, knock on wood, we survived this huge winter storm. I know that there was a possible sinkhole this evening in town, and so we are monitoring those effects, especially as they impact transportation for our families. If you are watching news, President Biden did approve a declaration of emergency for California, so I know our facilities crew is really watching closely any potential damages we had due to the storm, because by having a declaration of emergency, that opens up additional federal funding that we can apply for. We, as a board and governance team, are going to be going into a retreat the next 2 days, and we're really excited about that. And our audience here is our facilitator, Pam Hobday. So thank you, Pam, for being here and observing us. And we have some fantastic work scheduled for the next day and a half. And then the following week, I will be attending the AXA Superintendent Symposium and the CALSA, which is the California Latino Superintendents Association Advance in Monterey. So I can be reached. That's where I'll be.
Okay.
So this one is really important for me to share with everyone this evening, especially our two new trustees, because I know you did not sit on my interview panels. You didn't really get to know me up until now, what I believe in. What are my beliefs as a superintendent, as an educator? And I have taken the opportunity over the past 6 months to really listen, assess, ask questions, and really contemplate where we should be going as an organization and as a district. I was fortunate that there are a lot of systems and amazing people in place in an organization. I didn't have to come in with my hair on fire, which there is none, and drastically make changes. I was able to take my time and really examine what is here. But I want to share with you all this evening sort of 5 areas that I think have really started to raise to the top for me and the direction I would like to move us towards as an organization. The first one is we need to eliminate the predictability of the achievement gap and ensure that we raise expectations for all students. That's, to me, one of the top priorities that we have to do. We have to continue to raise the top and ensure that our students are getting what they need. Secondly, we need to ensure that all students have high-level mathematics instruction and learning that prepares them for future success in an ever-changing world. This is really important to me. We know that mathematics success really contributes to your future employability, your success in career. And so we want to make sure all our students are getting a high level of math. Third one, which obviously the storm reminds us on a daily basis, which is we need to invest in our facilities and our technology for our students. We want to stay ahead of the game. And this evening we'll get an update on facilities. The fourth item there, and these are not in numeric order, so let's not say one is higher than 3 or 4. They're just bulleted.
Okay.
I take them all with very high priority. We need to support our adults to innovate and to still keep alive the traditions that make St. Helena a special place. So I know that's tough, right? How do you innovate and stay constant? But I think it's something we can work on. Lastly, we become a model for how the state funds education and supports the well-being of students, staff, and the community. And that really, for me, touches on the social wellness of our students, our employees, and our connection and partnership with the community. We know it's such a tight-knit group. As we go, they go, the community. So they look to us to be innovative. They look to us to support our children and our families, and we'll look to them to support us. So I thought it was important for me to provide that for you all this evening.
That's great. Thank you.
This is the same thing in Spanish. And lastly, some upcoming events. I know that next week, the Future Farmers of America, they have their 22nd annual Degree in Proficiency Award Ceremony. You're very welcome to attend if you can that evening. There is a wellness fair that we're going to hear a little bit more about shortly. We are going to be sending parents and children from the high school to Step Up to College, which is a conference in Sacramento. Roxana is working to reach out to 11th and 12th grade families, starting with those, and encouraging them, and Mr. Cinto as well. Thank you, Mr. Cinto. And we're hoping to fill a bus. We've chartered a bus. Hopefully we can get 50 some odd people to go. It looks like a great event. We have, just as a reminder to you all, we're going to be doing a board study session, which will be a deeper data dive. I know on our agenda this evening there's a dashboard presentation. Really, that's more of a high-level touch point. I would recommend, if we're going to do a deeper dive on the 13th, that you probably save more of your deeper questions for that. Because that data summit will include not only the folks at the dais, but it will include our school principals. And lastly, we do have the English learner reclassification ceremony mid-month, and that's for the primary school and the elementary school. And we'll get more details out to you all.
May I ask one quick
Yes.
clarifying? On that Step Up to College event?
Yes.
I see it's targeted for Latino parents, but is open to all?
Mr. Cinto, do you know if it's open to all? Right. It really is geared towards
Okay,
our
great. Thank you.
Spanish-speaking Latino families.
Okay.
Predominantly. Great question. So I'd like to call up Mr. Dave Pauls, who is going to share a little bit more about this wellness fair coming up on the 2nd.
Thank you, Ruben. Good evening. David Pauls from RLS Middle School. I wanted to share with you our upcoming wellness fair. We've been doing a health or wellness fair at RLS as long as I've been there, which is 25 years. Every year it evolves to meet the needs, specific needs that we see within our students. So this year we have 4 areas that we're, Erica, do you have that slide? Oh, I do? Let's see if I can work this.
There it is.
There we go. So it is for our students. It's going to be on Thursday, February 2nd. And it's an opportunity for our students, families, staff to all take part and learn. And basically what we're trying to do is present a 30-day challenge the whole month of February of encouraging and actually a little bit of accountability for our students of keeping track of their wellness activities. So there's going to be 4 different areas that we're focusing on. I'm figuring out which board to look at. Healthy eating, Nutrition. So Angela Baxter is going to be working with Carolyn from the Blue Zones. We've been working with Carolyn from the Blue Zones to coordinate this whole effort. And they're going to be focusing on nutrition and nutrition that supports well-being. Hopefully that would be including eating breakfast, because I know that I think there's a lot of our students that don't eat breakfast. Also, they're going to have, with the nutrition station, they're going to have a bicycle with a blender to make smoothies. So we're trying to make this interactive. This is middle school. We need to keep them moving. We can't have them sitting too long. So they'll have a bicycle smoothie making machine, and they'll have different options of coming up with different recipes for smoothies. Another area is physical activity or physical movement. So we're going to have a yoga instructor come, and then we're going to also give an option of students who want to be a little bit more active, because this is going to be during their 80-minute block period of PE. They'll have badminton to choose, so they'll either choose yoga or badminton. And then we're going to have stress management. We're going to talk about anxiety and depression, and especially sleep. And as was mentioned earlier about social media, there's a lot of our students, I think, are not getting adequate sleep. And as we know, that affects your whole following day of functioning, all around physical, mental. And then the last one is social connection. And we're going to have Miss O'Leary, our counselor, is going to run that one. And she's going to have an activity, a connecting activity, and talk about the importance of connecting with friends, classmates, family members, just encouraging connection. So those are the 4 areas that we're focusing on. And then the students will have, so this is going to be titled The Passport to Wellness. And they're going to have these little imitation passports. And what we're going to do is they're going to keep track of a log. Erica, does it go into the slides? Oh, there you go. Jeez. So anyways, there's this, yeah, I'm a PE teacher, so give me a break. So you can see the bicycle blender for making smoothies on the 4 different areas. Let's see if I can get the next one. So these are some of the goals. We want to explore new ways to improve students' wellness, recommit habits and practices that they've had in the past, share their learning with their loved ones, and creating a healthier school culture. And that is a priority. And as a teacher who's been around a few years, I've noticed that really we need to focus on that. We need to focus on that a lot more. And in my opinion, achievement needs to take a backseat to wellness. I know it's hard to, that's my professional and personal opinion. Anyways, and wellness leads to success. So you have to be well before you can be successful. So this is their passport, what it'll look like, and they'll get stamps. So like the first one was, I chose to eat a carrot instead of chips. I drank water instead of Gatorade. I went to bed before a certain time last night. So just things that they're keeping track of their wellness activities. I rode my bike to school. I walked home with a friend. I went to the movies with friends. So basically encouraging all the different areas that we talked about. And that's about it, I think. And so I want to put it out there for all of you, board members and administrators within the district, to come and attend and observe what we're doing here. And we're also planning an exit survey at the end of the month, where students could answer questions about what changes did they make and how did that impact their month. Do they feel better? Are they performing better? Are they sleeping better? All around.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much. I'm so
welcome.
excited for the RLS students. What a wonderful day to
Thank you.
to plan. I just wanted to touch on the fourth point, creating a healthier school culture.
Yeah.
I don't mean to put you on the spot or to give
okay.
details. Do you feel that there's been when did you see the decline in school culture? Prior to the pandemic, after? Do you think it contributes?
It was coming before the pandemic, but I mean, our school culture is, RLS, speaking for RLS, I think is overall pretty healthy. There's things that we can't control, the social media aspect of things that we can't really control as educators. But I think that we could focus more on, like I said earlier, wellness, putting wellness in front of other things, and making sure that kids are getting adequate sleep and nutrition, and they have connections, and they have support, and they have healthy ways of dealing with stress and anxiety. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I answered your question.
That does. Thank
but,
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
And I
you,
will
Mr.
be there.
Prince. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Back to you.
Well,
Is that
yeah,
it?
that's the end.
That's
I don't
the
know if there's
end?
any questions for me. If not, we can move on.
I didn't have any questions. Trustees, any questions, clarifying or otherwise? Okay, all right.
All right, thank
Thank you. Okay, item 8C is Superintendent Subcommittee Reports. Mr. Aurelio, please.
So this was also a light month around these reports and these committees. We only had one committee meeting, and I will actually turn it over to Trustee Simon.
So I attended my first board policy committee, so I'm going to be brief, I promise. The process, just to tell you about the process. In attendance is Dr. Aurelio, Mr. Heller, Mrs. Stubbs, Ms. Allen, and Mr. Stinto, and myself, and usually President Pelosi. What we do is we review the board policies and administrative regulations and discuss proposed changes. And the recommended policies will be shared later during the meeting. And they're just going to be shared tonight and brought back at the next board meeting for approval. And at this time, I wanted to also acknowledge the time and the effort that the staff devotes to updating board policies so they can remain compliant. And as Dr. Aurelio shared, in our ever-changing educational landscape. So thank you.
And I appreciate being called a doctor, but I'm not a doctor. But I'll take it.
I'm so
You just gave him
embarrassed.
a bump. There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it.
and I will echo on the amount of work that staff does, because those policies can be multiple pages and require a lot of edits and time. So thank you to everybody who participates in that. Item 8D is the St. Helena Teachers Association report to the board. Mr. Farrell, please.
Good evening. My report tonight, I just want to welcome everybody back from a nice long break. The teachers seem well rested. I have started some individual site meetings with some of the schools. I've only been to RLS to this point. I have 3 other meetings in the next couple of weeks. I will say that one of the things, just been a couple weeks back, but we had a lot of positive feedback on the vertical articulation last Wednesday, and the teachers were assigned to give a strategy that they were going to use in their classrooms about building thinking classrooms in mathematics. And I believe the feedback was really well received, at least at the 6-12 level, where I heard most of the positive feedback, which is nice to hear from a vertical articulation that we had on the coming back to school. So that's one of the highlights so far. I'm sure there'll be many more, and we look forward to working together in the numerous things we have to do here in the next couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Item 8E is a written report for the month of January, and just to comment and thank Christina for her time as serving as president. as along with everybody else, and to welcome and congratulate our new incoming board for the CSEA. So thank you for your commitment and stepping forward to doing that. Then items 8F through I are the principal reports for the schools. And obviously those are written reports for our review. As always, they contain a lot of great information. Highly encourage everybody to read those. And I want to just thank the principals for putting those together for us with all those details. Lots of good stuff going on at our schools. Okay, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda, item 9. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion and action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? No participants, okay. Okay, then that was that. Next question. Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wolf? Aye. Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, we're going to move on to item 10A, which is the adoption of resolution 22-30, recognizing the significance of Black History Month. Mr. Ruben Aurelio, please.
Great, thank you. So this is a resolution we do bring annually to honor Black History Month, and I'm actually going to ask our student trustee, if she's willing to read the resolution for us tonight.
Whereas the month of February is officially celebrated as Black History Month, which dates back to 1926 when Dr. Carter G. Woodson declared it as an important time in February to recognize the heritage and achievement of Black Americans, and whereas the St. Helena Unified School District supports the significance of Black History Month to honor the contributions of Black Americans in the nation's history, to learn more about the past, and to better understand the experiences that have shaped the nation, and whereas the governing board acknowledges the national theme of Black History Month for 2023 is Black Resistance, a theme that explores how African Americans have resisted historic and ongoing oppression in all forms since the nation's earliest days. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District recognizes that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in their own identity and heritage, and to understand, respect, and accept the identity and heritage of others. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District greatly values and racial diversity and believes it enriches and strengthens our nation, and now, therefore, it is resolved that the governing board of the St. Helena Unified School District hereby supports the proclamation of February 2023 as Black History Month in the St. Helena Unified School District, and encourages all schools to commemorate this occasion with appropriate activities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there trustees, any question? Wait, hold on. First, I got to go public comment. Is there anyone who participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay, all right. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-30 as presented? Come on, don't be shy.
I'll make a motion to approve. Adopt.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Miss Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 10B is the approval of the revised board meeting calendar for 2023. Mr. Ruben Aurelio, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. We have one change currently that we're suggesting that is February 15th. The original date was February 16th, but that is currently in our calendar as a recovery day. And since it looks like we're in the clear, that will be a non-working, not school day for the majority of our employees. So we want to move that meeting instead of this Thursday to the Wednesday, the 15th.
Okay. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the revised board meeting calendar as presented?
Motion to approve?
Okay. Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner,
Aye.
Trustee Wolf,
Aye.
Trustee Mora,
Aye.
Trustee Simon,
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye, motion carried. Item 10C is the adoption of Resolution 22-33, the School Board Recognition Month. Mr. Aurelio, please.
So this one's all about you all. This is the California School Boards Association. They do recognize the month of January as School Board Recognition Month. So thank you for providing your time and energy. So we have a resolution for you all. It's kind of weird that you're approving your own resolution. Just put that out there, but it is a resolution to honor you all.
Okay, great, thank you. Would one of the trustees just like to read that out loud? Get some practice on the microphone, Jean Marie.
go.
All right.
There you go.
Reading the right one.
There you
Correct.
go.
Okay.
Whereas an excellent public education system is vital to the quality of life for all California citizens and communities, and whereas our public education system has faced unprecedented circumstances these past years as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas our local school boards acted immediately to ensure our children's academic, social, emotional, physical, and mental health needs continue to be met at a time when students needed consistent services most. And whereas local school board members are committed to children and believe that all children can be successful learners, and that the best education is tailored to the individual needs of the child, and whereas school board members work closely with parents, educational professionals, and other community members to create the healthiest environments possible where all students can thrive, and whereas school board members are responsible for building and maintaining the structure that provides a solid foundation for our school system, and whereas school board members are strong advocates for the public education and are responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations of the district, and whereas the mission of public schools is to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and to empower them to become competent, productive contributors to an ever-changing world. Now, therefore, we, the St. Helena Unified School District School Community, hereby declare our appreciation to the members of the school boards and proclaim the month of January 2023 as a School Board Recognition Month. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the dedication and hard work of the local school board members and in working with them to create an education system that meets the needs of our children.
Thank you.
Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-33 as presented?
Motion to approve?
Okay. Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner,
Aye.
Trustee Wolf, Trustee Mora,
Aye.
Trustee Simon,
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, item 10C is the request to accept gifts, donations, or earmarked funds. This is an amazing list. Mr. Aurelio, please.
It is a very long list, and we appreciate all that have donated to our school district. Are we reading this list
Well,
this evening?
You know, normally, it's just, there's just, I mean, you can see how fortunate this community is by just looking at this list. I mean, they total $175,264 in donations to our students for various things. You can see there's scholarships, there's band, there's athletics, choir, drama, track and field, FFA, and wrestling. I mean, so, please know that to our donors, your names are out there. We've read them, we recognize them, and we just want to thank you so very much for your support of our schools and our students.
Yes, indeed.
Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions, comments about this?
I do. And typically the list is not this long. is this the time of year that scholarships are presented, or a little history on this long, generous list?
Well, that is a good question.
See,
I think the scholarships, these are probably the times that they would start to come in to get ready for the graduating.
Okay.
I mean, well, these are going to be, some of them are 2022, some of them are 2023. So they're scholarship money that's coming in for the graduating seniors. And then obviously maybe there's the ones that are being paid out. Andy, is that correct? Okay.
Okay.
And then it could be, maybe there's with, not having kids in the school right now. I don't know if there's also just been big, fundraising efforts by the athletics in general. So maybe that's another reason why there's a lot for the athletics as well.
I would wonder too, based on the time of the year, December's a big month to donate, right? There's drives, to get it within a tax year.
Yeah.
And so they'd be coming forward now if they were donated in December.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the gifts, donations, and earmark funds as presented?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, item 10E, adoption of resolution 22-29, district of choice caps for the 23-24 school year. This is the January 2023 proposal. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Thank you. So I want to start, before we go into the actual numbers of the caps, I want to share just a little bit background of why I'm bringing the numbers that I'm bringing. I know we brought this proposal in December. I was asked to bring it back for, do a little more digging with the numbers, get a little more data. And one thing, when I was hired, I heard pretty loud and clearly one of the challenges that this district faced was declining enrollment. And how are we going to address declining enrollment? As we see, it's not strictly a St. Helena challenge, it's a statewide challenge where students are either not moving to California or moving away from California. Obviously, there's housing costs that are associated with that challenge. And we're not immune to that here in St. Helena. One thing I realized coming into the system is you really only have two levers that you can pull to increase your enrollment in a school district. One of those levers is you allow out-of-district students in to the system. District of choice is that process that we have here in St. Helena. The other lever you have is to increase your achievement. While you increase your achievement, you have less and less families potentially opting away from your school district or choosing, say, private school. So those are two levers. And it might feel like they're contradictory at times, that if you increase enrollment, you subsequently increase things like class sizes. Does that have an impact on achievement? So I'm going to share a little bit about my background. When I was a teacher, I taught at a school called Henry J. Kaiser Elementary in Oakland. This is a public school. It was a school of choice in the public school system. In Oakland Unified, it's a very diverse district and large district. This school drew from all over the district. It was a school that was lottery based, and it was also a school that had some of the highest achieving programs, K-8. What I felt as a teacher in that process was the families that came to my school had some unifying factors. They were highly interested in the education of their children, so much so that they were willing to commute and drive from their neighborhoods to bring their schools there. They saw it as a place that offered amazing things, not unlike St. Helena. We heard a lot about the high school today. So I will share my theory is as we bring students into our district, we're also bringing students and families that want to be here. They want to benefit from the richness that we offer. And that in turn is going to help raise our achievement as well. And as we raise our achievement, that's going to help the second lever, which is increased achievement, increases demand at our schools. We have control over caps. We get to decide what that limit is. And we obviously are in a space to support the influx of more students and maintain the programs that we have. Our programs are not threatened. We have a tremendous amount of funding that's offered through the property taxes that are fabulous. So these proposals are not going to take us above a threshold that would require us to add to our budgetary needs, like staffing. And so those are the numbers I bring. I also heard from the board last time we were here that we wanted to make sure, especially at the lower primary levels, the small class sizes really do make a difference, especially when you're teaching reading, for example. It's easier to teach 12 kids to read versus 20 kids to read because you just get more access to students and more time. So you'll notice that I did lower the caps at the K1, 2 levels from the previous numbers. But you also will notice that I've stepped the caps at 3rd through 8th grade. And in full transparency, I think it's important that the board knows this, is I do believe in trying to let as many of the kids who have applied into our district. And with that, I give you the numbers.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? I know we have one written comment. Everybody was able to to read that. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, trustees, any questions, conversation about this agenda item? This is brought over from last month because everybody did require a little bit more time and the need for information. And I know that all of us, including Trustee Kerr, have met with Mr. Aurelio at least once, some of us twice, to kind of flush out this topic. You know, this, I kind of want to have a conversation start, so I don't necessarily want to project too much here. Sure. So if we want to just take the time to share your thoughts, your feelings, if you need questions, this would be the time to do it. Okay. So.
I have one clarifying question. I'm looking at 9th grade, and could you explain why the proposed cap is 120 and not 125 like the rest of the high school
Partly
grades?
because of the unknown. We typically get additional 9th graders from Howell Mountain, Po Valley. Those are not part of the caps. They're not, they're treated like resident students, so we build a bit of a cushion instead of going to 125.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
It's kind of like kindergarten where there's more of an unknown for that grade level.
Got it.
Right.
Where the others we know, we can predict more closely.
Okay. And then my other question with that comment is the anticipated net increase enrollment at the kinder, we have it as 12?
12 is, yes.
So the recommendation is accepting 12 students through DOC?
We don't know that yet, right? We set the cap, and then we don't make a decision. We wait list everyone.
Right. I'm sorry.
We'll be running a lottery this evening,
And
so those 12 will be numbered 1 through 12, and then come May, at that point we decide where we're at safely, and we start bringing students in from the 12.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, trustees?
I'll go first this
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
I guess for me, just if people didn't listen to my comments in the December meeting, my core goal, like all of us here, is driving better educational outcome for our students at the level they need. And I was very pleased to see that as your top bullets also. I do believe, I still continue to believe that students need the gift of focus. I think the reason that tutoring is one-on-one and that interventions are small groups is that focus is impactful. I do agree that declining enrollment is a problem for our district, and so I am happy that we are able to give or have students that want to join us. We are lucky to have that gift. I think for me, I appreciate the 60 for the K through 2. I think that is a great class size. I still believe in the 70 for the 75 for the 3 through 5. I still believe in 85 for grades 6 through 8. And I do agree with the proposed for the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. With that cap, it still creates 80 open spots. So it's a lot. There's still a lot of spots. And that that specifically, that 80 was excluding the kindergarten, since I didn't know what the current enrollment is.
We don't know.
I just left that out, so
Right.
that's grades 1 through 12. And I think it's useful for the group to understand my decision-making process, where I come from. My background and training is process efficiency and data-driven decisions. So the first thing I ask people is, why are you looking to make a change? So when I look at the increasing the district of choice caps, my question is, what problem are we solving by continuing to increase the caps by grade level every year? Last school year, the board approved cap increases twice, and that created space for 210 students. I know there were, when I looked at the data, there were 86 on the list. I don't know if all 86 joined, probably not, because it was last minute for some of them, but it was a lot of space. This proposal with the 1,227 would create space for 212 students. And I guess I don't feel comfortable raising caps so that each child that applied get in. I want our caps to be stable and not change based on how many people apply. I want to change it so that I understand that we're solving a problem that we have. That's where I stand.
Great. Jean Marie?
Well, I think coming into this and kind of learning the whole process, at first it was kind of shocking to look at, oh, these caps. And then when I sat down with our superintendent and really kind of looked like at this chart particularly, even though it sounds daunting, it doesn't change our makeup that much with the number of students that it would increase. And I also agree with the fact that I think we're going to get some great kids because they want to be here. They know what amazing resources we have in this community, and they want their child to be a part of it. I'm sure there's people, your families work in town, and that's part of it too. But I also think you get people who just see what a good thing we have over here in St. Helena and want to join in. Personally, I'm comfortable with what the proposal is at this point, only because I think when you look at it and look at how many students already are considered district of choice, whose parents are in the district, et cetera, it doesn't change our class size, our classroom, our student climate. Because I think a school should reflect its community, and I would hate to see half of our children from out of our community. But I don't think that's the case. I am comfortable with what's proposed at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I think, Sean, you made a lot of really great comments that I would tend to agree with as well. I am comfortable with the 9 through 12 caps. I am comfortable with TK through second. I, too, am a little unsettled with 3rd through 8th. And for reasons that have been shared, I'm not saying anything that you and I haven't spoke about, is that, we still don't know what this also means financially for our district, because not a lot of revenue flows in with this as well, as we know. And that is an aspect that as board members, we have to pay attention to. It's not all about the money, but there is a financial factor. And while we are a well-funded district, it doesn't mean that we can do everything and serve everybody always to the best of our ability. So I want to be very cautious about that. I also feel like, yes, declining enrollment for sure is an issue, as you stated, across the state. But I also know that we are doing a 180 from what we've done for the past almost decade. So I need to be really settled on really understanding the implications of those caps for 3 through 8 before I feel comfortable accepting them. Right. Having said that, I'm assuming I have to go on the assumption that SHTA is also comfortable with this, that this is something that, conversation is to be, you have to have with Mr. Farrell to know that, this, because obviously the goal is not to lose any staff, right, for sure. But I want to make sure that that has been fleshed out with SHTA as well, and I believe that's going to happen. So, right? So, I mean, I think, you know, at this point, unless anybody wants to go back and say anything, well, Laura, you didn't really, I think Sean and I, what I'm hearing from Sean is pretty much what I reiterated, is that I could accept some caps, but not the entire enrollment as presented. I would make a modification to that, but I don't know how everybody feels about that. To then go back and we can still do the lottery this evening. Everything else can still happen. Everybody gets put on the list like it always happens. None of that process gets delayed. But we all also are missing a veteran board member this evening who has a lot of input and historical perspective on this. So, but Laura, I don't know what your feeling is overall. I mean, you know, do you prefer to try and vote it as is or a modification?
I support the information that you and Sean have provided. I do support a kindergarten through second cap where it is
Okay.
at 60.
Okay,
I support the high school caps where they are.
okay,
My concern, along with yours, is the third through eighth grade caps. We have some of our largest classes in some of those grades. And taking a look at the California dashboard, and I discussed this last month, and taking a look at our standardized test scores in math, that makes me hesitant in adding more students, adding the unknown to some of these grade levels, which are already over 20 students per class.
okay.
And I also feel that the parents of students that live within the district lines and the families with students who currently have their children in our program, in our school through the DOC program, deserve to enjoy the numbers at the class size for now.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that that can't be adjusted in the future. We can have more conversation about that. But I do want to give the gift of focus and honor the students that we currently have in our district in those larger class levels and really focus on their needs, especially with the conversation with Mr. Pauls and the wellness at the RLS. I really think we need to focus on the mental health and the academics, and I'm saying in that third through eighth grade, those bigger groups.
Okay.
I wish we could please everyone, but that's not how public education always works.
Okay.
Sorry.
All
Thank
right.
you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's a hard decision. It's not,
Yeah,
it's not
it is.
easy.
And that we are able to come revisit these. So that is
Wonderful.
always, you know.
If I may ask, if the board feels comfortable, we can adopt portions of these caps. If it sounds like everyone's open to the TK to 2 and 912.
That's what
I
I'm
can get
hearing as
adopted
well.
Yes.
This evening, and we can bring back for the next time. That way, we have a full complement of the board members to discuss the 3rd through 8th.
Yeah, that would be my preference. And
I would
think-
appreciate that.
And I think we have at least 3 people. I mean, Jean Marie is shaking her head yes as well. So my suggestion as well is to modify the motion in front of us to accept on the resolution 22-29 the caps for TK through 2 and 9, 10, 11, 12th grades as presented in the document. And we will revisit 3 to 8th
Okay.
in February.
Okay.
That was a long-winded motion.
That's your motion.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve what I just said?
I motion to approve what you just said.
Okay. Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carried. Okay, so now we'll move on to conduct the District of Choice Lottery and create the student waiting list for 2023-24. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Okay, so second phase of this process is we have the applicants and we conduct a lottery to give them a sequential number of where they are. So when we do, like we've approved the TK to 2 and the 912 this evening, when it comes to May, when we're allowing and pulling students off this wait list, we will have an order for them.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn over to Ms. Madrigal.
The District of Choice Lottery tonight will be conducted through our electronic application system, which is SchoolMint. We will have all of it will do it as a slow, very anticlimactic process here, as I will just go ahead and press the button, and then that will be the end of the process. So Ms. Hansen is going to accompany me through that process.
It is anticlimactic.
Yeah, there's nothing exciting.
It used to be like literally a bingo.
But it took a long time. Do I see something?
No, because she literally is gonna, she just presses a button in the lottery program and it just generates
Okay.
it.
On the screen is just showing you the summary and the priority areas.
Do you like some music or something?
Exactly.
Jeopardy.
Oh, just I want to point out, you notice on this chart there's a grade 14. So we do have a request for the adult transition program, which we provide education up to age 22. So that was new. We're still trying to. Did we get a final ruling on that one? We have not from the state. So we're including it for now because we're still waiting to see if that's something we have to honor based for a DOC request. Yes. So we're still waiting to hear, but we figured include it for now. Two more clicks.
Okay, the lottery has been completed, so this information along with the chart will be posted to the website tomorrow, and all families will be notified by the 31st of this month.
Thank you, as always, Ms. Madrigal. Okay, we are going to move on to item 10G, which is the information on the proposed board policy changes from the January 13th committee meeting. Please.
So I know Trustee Simon spoke to the policy work. You can see it's a very large list of policies. I do want to point out that we also list the administrative regulations. Of course, the board does not approve those, but that is how we put the policy into practice. So we put them there just for your reference, and any changes that they have to coincide with the board policies. So it's a list of board policies. I'm not expecting you all to read them right now. You will have a month to really digest these and ask questions. If anything comes up, please reach out. And these will be brought back in February for actual vote for approval.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay, trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. And just to let you know, when you first sit down, when you get these policies to read, you will see what's being added, striked out. You'll see the kind of the language that's changing on those. You can see from the summary that provided that most of it are CSBA recommended. There are usually things that we just have to do to stay current and stay up to date. A lot of them are not. They're not intense in nature, if you will. They're more of administrative process. But you'll see that as you start to review them. Okay. How's everybody feeling? Are we good to go one more section? Maybe then take a break if we need to? Is that okay? Sure. All right. Okay, so we're going to go on to item 11A, which is the presentation of the 2022 California Dashboard. Miss Mary Allen, please.
Dave was definitely here.
Yeah.
Pull this down a little bit. Good evening, Superintendent Aurelio and board members. I'm excited to be here. So as Superintendent Aurelio expressed earlier today, this is going to be a high level. We are going to go into a lot more detail in the data presentation. So when you see some of the stuff in the dashboard, just know there's going to be a lot more data that we're going to discuss and answer questions to. So definitely high level. And just kind of giving some of the new board members an overview of the dashboard, it is our accountability measure for the state. So that's what the California dashboard represents, is how is this district and other districts doing with the state measures. So I have my little clicker here. So first, some things I really am not the type of person that wants to read every single chart that comes up here, but I think this one is really important, that I want everybody to understand some considerations when you look at the dashboard. This is on data from last year. So things that I want you to consider is that the COVID-19 pandemic really did impact education. It disrupted education, not just for St. Helena, but for all districts and across the United States. So when you look at the data and the presentation of our data, just understand that it's been impacted. It's been impacted. And we're not immune to anything just because we're a small district and we're in St. Helena. Number two is the dashboard is considered a restart. It's a baseline year because we have had 2 years of not collecting data for the dashboard. So it is our baseline year. So it's a restart for the state. The state was allowed to waive having to do the dashboard for 2 years. We're now back into federal requirements where the dashboard has to happen. Number three is that it should be used in conjunction with other data. Like anything else, data is a moment in time, so you want to have multiple measures to really be able to judge what's working, what's not working, a little bit about what's happening at this particular moment in time. So whenever I look at CAS data or I look at LPAC data, it's one moment in time for that kid on one day, and who knows what happened to that kid in the morning on the way to school. So when you're looking at data in isolation, you really can't. You have to put all the variables in there and look at other pieces to get a full picture of how the district's doing, also as how well the student is doing. So I just really wanted to go through those particular points. In reference to the dashboard, it is our accountability measure. I don't want to go back over it. As I told you, we had 2 years where we weren't doing the dashboard. Now we're back to the dashboard. So I'm not really going to go into this particular slide. You can see that. What the state measures is 11 areas. And I do want to go into this one so you can understand what they're looking at. So when the state is looking at all of the LEAs, they're looking at academic performance in math, English, and science. Science is now a measure that they look at. They're looking at chronic absenteeism. They're looking at college and career readiness. That has to do with AP, dual, graduation rates, a combination of all of that. Seal of biliteracy, A through G requirements, all of that falls into college and career indicator. They look at English learner progress. And they also look at high school graduation rate and suspension rate. Now that's from the state side for the measures. From the local side, we have to populate this, and they call this local measures, which are part of the 11 accountability index criterion. And what we're looking at is basic conditions. Are we offering a full spectrum of courses for our students? Are we offering A through G? Do we have clean facilities? Do we have qualified staff? Do we have curriculum? Do we have adopted curriculum? So it's looking at all of that. Do we implement our standards? Have our teachers been trained? Are they credentialed? Do we have any classes that we're teaching that we have a non-credentialed person in? So it's just looking at that as a school site and as a district. They also require us to look at the healthy kids or the school climate. We do data zone as part of our climate index, and we also look at healthy kids survey as part of our climate index, and then we look at discipline and suspension and so on and so forth. We also have to look at parent engagement and family engagement. And then last but not least is access to courses. Do all students have access to courses that we offer within our district? Those are the measures that the state is looking at. And I don't really want to spend too much time on this particular chart. I just want you to know that the LCAP came around in 2013-14 when they changed the funding formula. It used to be when you had No Child Left Behind, they were looking at API, that's the Academic Performance Index. It used to be just one measure. And then California changed things around, and we were super excited when they got into the local control funding formula and the LCAP, because they allowed districts to determine what they wanted to do instead of having things fall into categorical programs that you had to do simply this, follow this line, go to this way. It was an A through B kind of formula, and then they allowed the districts to start creating their own strategic plans, and that's the LCAP. And then from the LCAP, it came the dashboard, which is what we're going to look tonight. They created additional index and accountability measures that they wanted each district to look at. And then what came along later is we're going to provide some differentiated assistance for LEAs that don't meet certain criterion. And now we're into the point of systems of support. And what that basically means is the state is really trying to state that if you are not hitting some of these measures, we are not here to try to punish. We're here to try to see what we can do to build that LEA back up to where it needs to be to service all the students. So they have targeted assistance, they have comprehensive assistance, and then they actually have that urine intervention to where the state will come in and provide what intervention they want you to work on in reference to whatever that category might be. So there's different levels, but it's not punitive. It used to be punitive years ago. I'm putting my opinion on this, but I've read a lot and there's been a lot of statement. I've been around a lot. It's not there anymore. It really isn't. They really want to support. So if we ever get into that criterion for any of those areas, for targeted assistance or comprehensive support, they really want to help us out. And they're not here to ding us or do anything bad with the district. They're here to actually bring the professionals in and help us. Next slide. I'm not going to get into this. This just tells you how you can end up in differentiated assistance related to if you're, for instance, just a category, if you're falling in the red, which is the low, and it happens to be low for graduation and low for English, you can't just be low in one area. You have to be low in two of the, I'm blanking. Thank you, indicators, thank you. I was just blanking completely. So this just kind of gives you a brief overview of what it takes for us to be in differentiated assistance. Here, it just gives you a summary, kind of an overview of what's happening with the dashboard. You can see in 20 and 21, it wasn't there. And that's where for California, we were not required to have a dashboard, and now we're required. So it's coming back up, as I said. And when you look at this, you're going to see status only. Years ago, when we first had it before COVID came around, if you look on the left-hand side of the chart, you'll see graduation rate. This is just giving you an idea. It was color-coded because it was 2 years. They would have a status, and then they'd have a change, and then they'd give us a color. Are we going up or are we going down? So it was all color-coded. Now that last year's data is our new baseline, we are only in status year. There is no change. Next year, we will go back to colors, but for this year, we're in the purple. I don't know why they chose purple, but we're in purple now. And the rating scale, Likert scale, is down below in reference to where our scale is. You can be super low or you can be super high. And so what you're looking at right here is what our dashboard looks like overall for the district. I'm going to let you take a moment just to look at that. It's a little confusing when you look at chronic absenteeism and suspension rate because technically you want them to be low. So they're the opposite of the other indicators.
Thank you, because it was like my
Yes.
glaring Post-it note question saying, Mary, I don't understand why that says low, yet we almost have all the bars, right? So
Yeah,
okay.
you want to be low in those areas. So I wish they had done a little better job of making that delineation, but putting it out there so you understand how that works. And then for the rest of the slides, it's broken down per school site. And again, we're going to go into more detail when we're in our data presentation. But right now, you're kind of getting an overview, and you can see that we're high on a graduation rate. English learner progress, again, you're going to get more data in all of this, is really good. Our progress from moving our students up a level in their English proficiency or reclassifying it's just tremendous. They do such a good job in the district, and they being all of our teachers and our EL coordinators at each site. And then you can see with English language arts, we're high, and math, it's not surprising, we're low. That's a focus area. That's been a focus area in our LCAP. It'll continue to be a focus area in our LCAP. And then I'm not going to get into the other school sites. You can simply look at that in your report and take a moment. And then as we go through the data presentation, that's certainly something you can, when you're looking at the data that's going to be presented in the CAS scores and the LPAC scores, you can cross-reference with the dashboard and add to your questions that you have for our data presentation. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, as always. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions or clarifying comments for Ms. Allen?
Yeah, I have a quick question for parents who may look over this. I noticed that for the high school, the chronic absenteeism performance level score is missing, and at the RLS, the English learner progress performance score is missing. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, if the numbers are low enough, then they don't represent.
Okay.
So for RLS in reference to the ELs, if you have less than 30, they will not populate on the dashboard.
Okay.
Because then it starts drilling down to students.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No. And I would say, I know math is the focus. We've talked about that. And even, when you look at the first slide where it's like mathematics is low, but when you break it down by school, they change a little bit individually as well. So, I realize that's a compilation when they give us that low of the 2 bars. But it's important to note that by school site too, it obviously changes a little bit. So, okay, well, we look forward to diving in.
And I would recommend for any parent or community member that's here tonight, I did put a link related to the dashboard. Anybody can go into the dashboard, and then you can drill down even further to see if there's subgroups in those particular categories that are falling into either high or low, that we need to address as well.
Great. Thank you for providing that.
Thank
Is
you.
that something that would be on our website in case, or will just be attached to the agenda? Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Okay, on to 11B is the presentation of the 2022-23 RLS Site Strategic Plan. Ms. Cox, hello.
Good evening, board members. I'm in between Dave and Mary, it turns out. So this is a presentation of the Single Plan for Student Achievement, which is called the SIPSA because we have to have an abbreviation for everything in education. This is a plan that is written in alignment with the LCAP. It covers the same goals, but at a site level rather than an overview district level. The plan is written based on last year, and it was written over the summer and at the very, very beginning of this school year. So it's important to know that it's a work in progress, and it is not over because we're only about halfway through the school year. So some of the goals are completed, some of the goals are not done yet, and most of the goals are in progress. So that is just a little background for the single plan. So goal 1 is using data to identify and address individual areas of learning loss in all student subgroups. Obviously, this is an area of concern statewide and within the district, especially given the interrupted learning that happened. So some of the things, I'm not going to read every word, but I want to focus on a couple of things that we do. We have used our data to determine which students need targeted tutoring. That's based on grades and on their MAP tests that were given at the beginning of the year, and on their scores from last year. So we picked the students who needed the most help and were at risk, and that's the targeted tutoring. We also offer general open tutoring for any students who want to come 1 day a week with a math teacher focused on math, but any subject's fine, and 1 day a week with an English teacher, again, focused on English, but they can come and do work from any subject area. We also started a program just about a year ago called Barton's, because we have a small group of students, primarily special education students, many of whom are also overlapping English language learners who are reading far below grade level. That problem was exacerbated by missing some of their key learning years. So they're mostly this group is reading between 2nd and 4th grade level, which is of great concern because they're going on to high school. We don't teach reading anymore at the secondary level. We read to learn. We don't learn to read anymore. Our teachers aren't even trained in that. They don't know how, to be honest, for the most part, because that is not the focus of a secondary teaching credential. So we saw that need, and big shout out to our special education teacher who really was passionate about it, and to our district for supporting us in that, in the purchase of Barton's. It's a 1-on-1, well, actually 1 to 3 at the most, program of working independently. We're learning about how to use it most effectively. To begin with, it started at level 1, so it's really like phonics and sounding words out. So we don't have data yet on how well it's going to be over time because it's too new. I have spoken at length with the teacher who's in charge of it, Ms. Bredhauer, and she said she's expecting the current 6th graders to receive the most benefit from it because they'll have it for a longer period of time. We're also involved in the California Principal Support Network, which is designed specifically to teach staff how to use data in order to address individual learning needs of students. And that's something that is also happening at the primary and elementary school. Goal 2 is increasing staff and student awareness of implicit and explicit bias within our school system and school community, and developing systemic practices to improve access and equity. So some of the things that we've done are, we had Washington Consulting Group come in and work with students. We also offered common ground assemblies to educate students on inclusion of their peers with disabilities. That was a pretty amazing assembly. It was put on by 2 parents of special education students, and so they really talk from their heart about what it's like. And I just want to recognize the students at RLS because they are amazing, working with their special education peers. They're so welcoming and so warm, and they're so involved, and the teachers do an amazing job of including anyway. But it's a great reminder and a good conversation about what else we can do to make sure that every student at our school feels like they belong. Building monthly classroom circles into family groups. We started that at the end of last year and are continuing it this year. The topics vary depending on the needs of the school. Social media seems to be a theme this evening. That is one of the things that was one of our topics. And then finally, in the interest of making sure that all students have equitable access to the classes that we offer, it's challenging for students who are both special education and who are English language learners, because it means that the 2 periods where students can get enrichment or elective opportunities are both taken up with those academic subjects. So a student who might be an amazing artist or a musician did not in the past have the opportunity to experience that part of their learning and that part of their wellness and their growth as a human being. And so we did some creative things with the schedule and figured out how to allow dual identified students to still have an elective, which has helped with behavior and motivation and enjoyment of school. So I'm just so happy that we were able to find a way to do that and still meet our requirements as a school to support those students. Goal 3 is about increasing engagement by developing and planning events and activities in response to the needs and feedback of the entire school community. On this one, I really want to highlight the first bullet, which is back to school night, providing an interpreter at each grade level. This was one of the highlights for me personally. I felt like it made a huge difference for our Spanish-speaking families. So it's very challenging to have interpreters at a middle school where each student has 7 different teachers, and most of our teachers do not speak Spanish. And so when they rotate through, the parents come, sometimes they bring their child with them to interpret. The children are selectively interpreting in some cases, so they might not get all of the information that they should be getting. Teachers try to do everything that they can and we've had slides translated, but it's not the same as being able to ask direct questions. It's a sort of an intimidating environment. When it's all in English, it's challenging, and we've really struggled to try and meet that need. So again, doing some creative scheduling and trying to figure out a way to do it. We had a different schedule because of the way our master schedule works, they're the same teachers at 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade for the most part. So we were able to have a Spanish-only session, so each teacher gave up their prep period to do an additional section in Spanish with only Spanish-speaking families so that those families could have a comfortable environment to ask questions, to get the information they want, to not feel like I don't belong here or I'm intimidated. And I also did a welcome separate from the original welcome. I did a separate one in the library afterwards because the schedules were slightly shifted. We had about 60 families. We reached out to every single family, called them, emailed them. Roxana Plancarte helped. It was amazing. I just, when you come to a moment where you think all these years, how can we do this? I don't know how to make this happen. It's just this huge barrier and I can't figure out how to fix it. And then I literally was in my office and had a brainstorm, like out of nowhere. I was walking to go get my lunch and suddenly it was like, wait, I know how we can do this. And it was a beautiful thing and people were so grateful. So I just wanted to really say that's the kind of thing we want to be able to do. And it's hard, it's challenging. Goal 4 is continuing working to build inclusive school-wide systems that are supportive of the physical, social, emotional, behavioral, and wellness needs of the school community. Again, one of the themes of the evening is mental health. So Roxana Plancarte and Terry O'Leary, our counselor, did a workshop, I guess you would call it, to help students with self-care strategies and how to deal with anxiety and stress. They did it last year as well as a sort of a pilot, and they used last year was with 7th and 8th graders. So this year, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. This year they just did 6th graders because they're taking the new group of kids coming up, and then they're discussing whether they want it. To do it every year is a little much. So they're talking about what they think is the best amount of time, probably every other year, similar to the way we used to do the Kaiser program were you a part of that, Caroline, the Kaiser thing? We used to do it. Kaiser used to come in every few years. I think it got interrupted, and do a program similar to that. We also did Safe School Ambassador training. This year we included 6th graders at the beginning of the year. So it's about 20 kids from each grade level who are trained to be out on the playground supporting students and making sure that it's a safe environment and that they're there as kind of a quiet way to prevent bullying. And Laura was there for part of that. So thank you. And Anna left, but she was there for part of it too. We also reduced the school day by 30 minutes a day so that it would be more in alignment with the state requirements and that it would be a more gradual increase in time throughout the district. We surveyed our students to ask how they felt about that. And they asked them how did it impact their lives, and then also how did it impact their learning, and then we asked for specific comments. And I just want to share briefly, the comments, as always, are the most interesting part. We had a long list of ideas why we thought this would be a good idea when we presented it to the board last year, and the advantages that it would have. It was interesting to hear the kids reiterate many of those things, especially about the impact it has if you're in sports or have after-school activities, and how late their nights are and how little time they can spend with their family, and how it's been helpful having that extra amount of time. But there were also comments that I never thought of. I had a number of kids say, it allows me to pick up my little brother or sister and not have them wait at school for me for a half an hour. And I feel better about that. My family feels better about that. It was a source of stress for our family to have my young siblings sit there waiting for me to be able to walk them home. And then there were a lot of students also who said it gave them time to get chores done and start dinner, so that when their mom gets home from work, they can sit down as a family and provide that little bit of everybody working together to make the family function better. So it was really thoughtful responses. I really appreciated all of the comments that the students had to make. And we also, what did I miss? RLS Unity Club, again, an opportunity to make sure that every student who chooses to become a part of Unity Club has the opportunity to do so, to make that more available to students who need that support. And then Ballet Folklorica also performed in October? I can't remember, to celebrate and highlight Latinx culture, and that was amazing. It's such a great performance. It's beautiful, and they have some younger students perform in it also, and the kids know them, so they're wildly excited to see them. So also, I believe that Superintendent Aurelio is an alumni of that performance group. Am I correct? That's what I thought. Okay. And that concludes my presentation. I just had to include that picture because I love it. Any questions?
Thank you so very much. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions, comments for Ms. Cox?
I just like to say, I think for a parent, middle school is always so intimidating when your little young thing goes off. And I had two daughters that went through RLS, 14 years apart. But I'm just so impressed with RLS, because I think being that intimidating sounding years, they have always worked really hard to make students feel a part of a community. And I think they've always been very forward thinking in their ideas, the inclusion. I think they've been head and shoulders above, so many programs. And everything you're sharing today, I just love hearing all your stories, and even simple things as making sure a special education student can take art, that they don't miss out on something that will be fun for them and educational. And I just applaud you. I think RLS is a great asset to our community. Always has been.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. Yes?
Anybody else?
I actually had one question on your first goal. I'm just curious about the after-school subject-specific tutoring. I have only a few times picked up my child from there, and it was there was light attendance. I'm curious if you have any barriers for attendance, if there's something that we can do to help.
I think the main barrier for attendance is that so many kids have after-school activities like sports, and that is a huge barrier. Our coaches do a great job. If we do have kids that are struggling, the coaches will say, don't go to practice, you need to go to after-school tutoring. We also allow it to be open-ended, so students, although it's available from 3:15 until 4 o'clock, if students say, I need help with this one problem in math, or can you explain this assignment in English, and then they can leave. So they do sign in and sign out because it's middle school, and we want to make sure that if parents say, hey, my kids said they were at tutoring, were they? That we can actually verify whether they were there or not. But yeah, it also varies a lot. It doesn't tend to be a huge group. It's available. The targeted one is more directed at students who have been parents have been called, invited, permission slips, what days, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Can I
Any
ask-
other
can I ask
questions?
a follow-up to that?
Yes,
tutoring?
yeah.
Principal Cox, so, because you mentioned barriers, for our students who take the bus home, they don't have access to this, right? The tutoring?
They do not. Yeah, we don't have very many kids who take the bus home.
Okay.
So that was one of the comments that was one of the issues that came up when we shortened our schedule was the busing and how that would be affected. We have more kids who ride the bus in the morning and fewer kids who take it home in the afternoon. It's usually less than about 5. It's a very small number of students, not counting our special education students who get separate busing.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Trustee Simon, do you have any questions or?
I don't, but thank you for your presentation, and thank you for getting those creative juices flowing about interpretation. That put a little frog in my throat, and I love that it was, I think you said 60 attendees. I mean, that's, for a first go, that's really a wonderful number to hear. So
Thank you, and I'm hoping that that will continue and build on that program. And I just want to say thank you to the people who gave their time to be interpreters. Lorena, Roxana, and Letty Olivier all agreed to be interpreters, one for each grade level. So it worked out really well.
That was a great
I have to say my one biggest strength is I am a scheduling guru. I'll give that to myself.
That's good. We like.
Thank you so much.
And I also just want to comment that I mean, I could hear your excitement and your enthusiasm and the pride in your voice as you're of these things being able to come to fruition and then be successful. So congratulations to you on that. I think it's great. I've also always hold a very special place in my heart for RLS as well. So my question on the intensive reading program. So what you were sharing is of concern, obviously. So, aside from the tutoring and that program, what else can be done to help those kids get ready for high school?
So that's why we're doing it with the reading program. To be clear, it's a very small number of students. It's about 8 school-wide. So it's not a large, don't feel like it's this huge chunk of kids. It's not. And they are all students who have learning disabilities and language barriers as well.
Okay.
And so that combination of things makes it very challenging for them in a large class setting to pick up the foundational skills that they needed to learn to read in the first place. No diss whatsoever to the primary and elementary, because I know how hard they work with all of those students. Some of the students aren't new to our district, came in later, missed those years. Other students were trying to learn the language, so it was really challenging for them.
Got it.
And then the pandemic on top of it. So we're just trying to get ahead of it so that when they're in high school, they can be successful. We are very cognizant of our role in middle school, which is to make sure that we do everything we can to get kids ready for high school.
Okay. Thank you for adding that information. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you again for being here. Okay. Is everybody ready for, well, we have one more item in the 11C, and then maybe we can take a quick little comfort. I think Mr. Heller might be ready. Hold on. 11C, presentation of the local control accountability plan infographic. Mr. Heller.
I am ready. Thank you. So as Ms. Allen pointed out earlier, the LCAP has been in place since roughly 2013. And as the board and many of us who work with the LCAP know, it's a very lengthy and sometimes tough to digest document. And so one of my charges when I first got hired 6 years ago was to find an infograph that really could show a lot of the data in an easily readable form that's a lot easier to comb through than reading the entire LCAP. And previously, we used a company that was able to create a very bare bones infograph for the LCAP. And while it was serviceable, I didn't really feel like it met kind of the goal that we were trying to achieve of sharing the data and the goals and actions that would be easily reviewed by staff and students and the community. Fast forward to this year, we were able to locate a provider that can create an LCAP both in English and in Spanish that is a great synopsis of all of our goals and actions, and does show really what we wanted to in having the budget associated with a lot of those different goals and actions. So I felt that the end product really kind of captured what we were looking for at the beginning. Is it's a great way that we could use this to not only have online, but we can print copies. We can have them available at school sites. We could potentially send these out to all families, or we could just, like I said, keep it online. So there's a number of different ways we can get the information out about the LCAP, but I really am happy with the end product. It's gone through review through our principals several times. I had originally wanted to bring this forward in September, but with a number of different iterations and recommendations, the final product is brought forward tonight for your input. After your input, if there's any changes or potential changes, then it would be a public document that we would want to begin to disperse and advertise.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, questions, comments? No? Anybody?
If I have a question on it, do I bring it to you outside just for clarification before it's published? Or did you want that now? Sorry.
In terms of the content or format, I mean, it's mostly like a format of the information.
Right.
So if you have information about the LCAP goals or actions, we can talk about that in perhaps offline.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think the format is digestible. It kind of gives just the crux of the information I think a community member would need. I like the dollar figures attached to that. I like the state average against what's happening at St. Helena. I think that is really beneficial. Like the colors, you did good on the colors. So, but yeah,
And I'll just add, we're seeing the PDF version, but there's a web platform version, so it opens like a booklet online. Actually, adds a little better. It presents better as a booklet.
Right. But no, I think especially if you've vetted it through your, site administration and other administration, I would think, that it looks like it covers what you would want to say about our school district to somebody who's either not familiar with us or who's even familiar with us. It would be my 2 cents.
Yep, and potentially it could be something that is printed by local realtors to advertise about school district to attract new families.
Exactly, because I do believe we used to do one of these in like a glossy, and it got mailed to everybody in the district, and probably Mr. Cinto will remember that even, but it was not well received because it cost a lot of money to do that, and when the community found out how much it cost, the school district, they thought it was a misuse of funds. Would be probably the polite way to say that. So, so as long as this is accessible, on the web or you email a link, I think that's, I think that's great. And if it's kept in a school office, I think that's also.
I think we would move forward with printing a limited number of copies.
Yes.
I did suggest that we could mail it, but if it got down to it, I would probably recommend no, because it's available on the web, and we'll print a limited number of copies. Like I said, that'll be available.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Trustees? Everybody?
Yeah, I like the idea of printing a limited amount of copies, perhaps strategically placing them around the community, the public school library, if they would accept it, or because it is such a lovely way to present information about our community, and just to get it out in the most financially effective way.
Right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Okay, we're going to just take about a 7-minute comfort break, and we'll be right back.
8:01, right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for sticking with us. We're going to continue on with the meeting. We're going to go on to item 12A under Human Resources. This is the consideration and approval of Resolution 22-31, skipping and competence criteria. Mr. Heller, please.
Yes, the board's asked to approve this resolution 22-31, which establishes skipping and bumping process for certificated employees in the district in alignment with Education Code 44955D. This process allows employees who have less seniority but more experience in a particular area of need to skip a more senior employee. The conditions for potential district needs are listed within the resolution of which this situation may occur. That's the meat of that, but the reality is we haven't used this particular resolution since I've been here. It's a good thing to have in place in the event something does occur, but giving our staffing and our current ratio of students per teacher, it's not something that I foresee that we use, but it's always a good practice for us to bring back every January to add context.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions for Mr. Heller? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-31 as presented?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 12B, consideration of the approval of Resolution 22-32, order of layoff for certificated employees / tie-breaking criteria.
Yes, so similar to the previous resolution, this resolution 2232 establishes an order of layoff for certificated employees in alignment with Education Code 44955B. In previous years, we have not exercised the need for layoffs in March, but we're continuing to be wise to do this practice annually to establish criteria for seniority. Should an unforeseen financial event occur that would require us to have a need for this layoff procedure. I will say that we have had a need for this one time in 6 years where we did need to exercise this. So it is good to have this order that allows us to determine a tiebreaker.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-32 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 12C, a consideration of approval for administrative job descriptions. Mr. Heller again, please.
Earlier this year, it was discovered that we do not have current job descriptions for all of our administrative positions. And while I began to kind of work and do the research on that, with the retirement incentive, we ended up having 2 administrative positions come vacant. So I thought it would be a good time for me to use the winter break to update and update all of our current administrative job descriptions and bring those forward. In doing that, the incumbents will have provided input and recommendations to the existing job descriptions that were available to update that and reflect the work that they're currently doing. So if the board does approve these job descriptions tonight, the 3 current administrative vacancies will begin to be posted starting tomorrow and then released, I think, every 3 days starting next week, so we can stagger those positions for interviews and timelines.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom who wishes to publicly comment or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I have one quick question. I noticed the position primary / elementary school principal.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, I mean, are we and I should probably know this, are we now going to one principal, or
No.
it just means it's the same description for both positions?
Right. It's
Okay.
it's primary principal, elementary principal. It's the same job
Okay,
classification.
thank you.
It's a good question, though.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Heller. I appreciate you doing this because I think this is an important thing to have in our offices, if you
Correct.
will, in our files. And I appreciate you speaking to the incumbents about that because I think those are perfect people who can tell you what their jobs are made up of. So thank you for doing that. Is there a motion to approve the administrative job descriptions as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon? Aye. President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carries. Okay, 13A is facilities. We're going to get an update on high priority deferred maintenance projects. Mrs. Andy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. So these are the topics that we'll cover this evening with a special focus on proposed elementary school roof replacement. And so the board received an update on our facilities program during the August board meeting, which included a list of planned high priority projects, with the intent that we would bring each of those high priority projects back to the board for individual review and consideration of approval. And the most urgent projects for the board to consider next would be total roof replacement over at the elementary school, HVAC system renovation here in Vintage Hall, and then also security system and fire alarm upgrades district-wide. And so this is just an excerpt, and it's included in the board agenda, the list that the board saw back in August. And so it goes on for a few pages. It goes out through 2027. And we've since taken this list to the Business Operations Committee for review and made a few adjustments to the timing of some of the projects, which you'll see in the upcoming slides. And then these are just some excerpts from the August presentation that describes the steps that we determined we would be taking, most notably that the plan is to bring each project back to the board with a budget plan and review. It's challenging to bring all the projects at once to the board just because of the details involved in completing a scope and a budget and a funding plan. And so the next few slides show the status of all of our current projects for which we've set a goal of trying to complete those in 2023, the summer of 2023. And so the first three projects have already been board approved, and those are on track with their planned completion dates that you can see there. And then the Vintage Hall HVAC replacement and the security and fire alarm system upgrades, those are pressing projects that we would like to address soon. The board on the consent agenda approved testing for the HVAC system downstairs, and so now we're going to take those results and put together a full scope and budget for you. With the paging system for the primary and the high school, we are just awaiting some bids on equipment and installation. However, replacing the paging systems at those sites is already in our budget under Fund 21 using some of the remaining bond funds. And the board has already approved the purchase of some clock equipment, which is on order and on its way here. And then we would like to include the installation of those systems along with the paging system work during the summer. And then in the upcoming slides, we'll talk about the elementary school roof replacement. Now, the well installation, we were looking at maybe installing some wells at the elementary school in RLS, although I'm kind of thinking we may need to push that project out a little bit and move up, evaluating the water system and the basement drainage over at the elementary school.
Yeah.
We've been kind of limping those along, but then as we saw with the recent heavy rains, we've got some serious issues there we want to try and address sooner rather than later. So we actually have those on the list for the summer 2024 However, we want to just start to get moving on evaluating those. In the fall, we will probably ask the board to revisit the idea of replacing the pool liner. We've talked about that in the past. We are working on applying for electric bus replacements, which I'm very excited about. We have submitted our application. They had a few questions about it. We've responded to those questions, and hopefully we'll hear soon. If we do get an electric bus replacement grant, that will cover all the cost for an electric bus and some of the infrastructure, but we would still have a district expense of approximately $92,000 for part of that infrastructure. And then each year we try and attend to some interior flooring and painting. And then later on this evening, you'll also hear a recommendation from me about possible energy conservation projects and consulting about that. And so this is a list of our future possible projects, kind of taken from the Excel colored spreadsheet that you saw, with a few adjustments since you saw it in August. For example, the HVAC replacement over at the elementary school, we moved that from 2023, and I'll talk about that shortly. And as I mentioned, I do think we want to move forward a little bit faster in looking at the basement and water lines at the elementary school. And with regard to the elementary school roof, the roofs there have leaked for many years, and we have tried less extensive repair efforts. For example, some silicone patching, replacing some tiles, raising the HVAC units. And we were thinking about doing the replacement in a couple of phases. So phase 1 with HVAC and then phase 2 with HVAC. But our project consultants have taken a look at the work and advised us that we should probably just combine all the roofing into one phase and then delay the HVAC replacement and do that later. So the scope that you'll see in a little bit here formulates the work in that way. And then the proposed scope of work includes over 41,000 square feet of new asphalt shingles, and then also replacing some gutters and downspouts and addressing some dry rot repair for a total estimated project cost of $1.7 million. And so this is a schematic of the proposed work. We would be doing all the areas in green and blue. We would not be doing the areas shaded in red. That would be the pod building and then also the Boys and Girls Club, and that's because those roofs were replaced relatively recently, I think within the last 5 to 8 years. And however, the green shaded areas and the blue shaded areas are over 20 years old, and I'm looking over at Joe to confirm. Yeah. And so a funding plan. So the funding plan that I would propose to the board this evening, and this item will come up later as an action item, would be to approve transferring $2 million from the general fund to Fund 40, our reserve for capital outlay. And we would budget $850,000 of that, and then $850,000 in Fund 25, where we collect our developer fees, to support the elementary school roof renovation project. And then after paying for that, we would retain the balance of that $2 million of $1.1 million in Fund 40 to complete the remaining 2023 projects that we have on the list. So addressing the HVAC renovation, and that's a very high-level ballpark estimate provided by our consultants, the $350,000. We're right now working with some consultants about addressing our security and fire alarm system upgrades. I would like to push the irrigation wells out, actually. This presentation was kind of completed before the most recent severe rains, and I'd like to maybe revisit the moving a little bit faster on the basement and the water lines at the elementary school, and then setting aside a little bit to address that infrastructure for the electric buses. And so if the board later approves the transfer of the $2 million, as you can see from the side note there, that would reduce our available unrestricted unassigned reserves from an estimated 28.19% to an estimated 23.59%, which is still well above the minimum reserve level required, and even above what CSBA recommends is 17% of payroll over 2 months. Does have us a little bit below our kind of our best practices goal that we're striving for with that, having that 10% of general fund expenditures and then an additional 33% of the excess property taxes. If we had that, we would be probably in the 29% range. And then the little chart below there shows the breakdown of our current fund balance in each of our funds, the current estimated reserve, and then it shows the impact of transferring that $2 million over to Fund 40, and then using $850,000 in Fund 25 and Fund 40 respectively towards that roof replacement project. And just a little bit more about how we're kind of strategically funding some of these projects that you're seeing. We're certainly using any kind of restricted special money that we can when it's available. So, for example, energy conservation projects, we can maybe fund those through a third-party investor. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the evening. We talked in August about modernization funding, and so we can apply for modernization funding in the amounts in bold there based on some of the current projects that we're doing. So, for example, the elementary school roof. We can apply for some state modernization funding for that in the RLS track, and the high school roof that we're doing right now. We won't be able to apply for that reimbursement until August 2024, and then it may take a few years before we're in the queue to receive those funds. But then once we do receive that reimbursement, we can use it to support some of our other projects that we have planned later on. So I just wanted to remind the board about that. So then the next steps this evening, you'll see on the agenda a request to approve a transfer of $2 million from Fund 01 to Fund 40. And then you'll see a request to review and approve a conceptual scope and budget for the elementary school roof replacement project. And actually I have those shifted in order in the agenda. And then finally, a proposal from Beam to perform the architectural services for us for that project. And so with that, I would ask if the board had any questions.
Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Okay, trustees, questions, comments?
No.
Okay. So, anybody? No, or can I ask a question, or you guys okay? Annie, can you go back to the slide about the one that had the reserves and the funding from the? Because I know that it's decreasing the funds. It's it's not the end of the world. I've got it here too, but I guess wanting to know if those modernization funds come back our way.
This one or the one with it?
Next before it, yes, this one.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to get those modernization funds, do we, for putting it very simple, do we get to pay back the reserves account with that money, or do we use it to fund other maintenance projects, deferred maintenance?
The funds could be used to pay back the reserve if you wanted to manage it that way. The way I'm envisioning it, though, is we're definitely going to need to use reserves towards these significant projects that we have. And
right.
So in using those, eventually, we wouldn't have to use as much from the general fund reserve.
Okay, which is great, because and I know our reserves have always been higher than what's required, certainly, and I think that's always made the board has always supported that, and I guess my question to you is because I did notice on other projects that kind of come up, funding would be coming from reserves. So all of a sudden now reserves are getting used, which is what they're there for. Totally understand that. I just want to get a sense from you of your comfort level as CBO, is this just what needs to happen, but we're still in good shape? I just need some reassurance as I see the reserves start to dwindle, what does our financial stability look like, kind of?
Yes, and so I feel very comfortable about this proposed transfer here.
Okay.
And in our reserves, especially given our financial forecasts, which we've reviewed in some
Right.
in our first and we'll review again in our second interim. And this is part of why I have staged the projects out the way that I have, so that we can definitely analyze our budget as we move forward and anticipate needs well in advance, and then develop a plan and bring that to the board and have it be kind of a dynamic plan too. So if
Right.
things change, then maybe we reprioritize things. And then also with an eye towards any new funding sources that are coming in
Okay.
that might help out with some of these projects.
Thank you. Yeah, you're always good about those new funding sources. And just a little historical perspective for, the board and the district has always felt that the philosophy about facilities is warm, safe, dry. That's for the benefit of our students and staff. And if you look at the 3 items that Andy has prioritized, those are warm, safe, dry right off the bat. So, and I would be in support of moving the elementary school basement further up the list than well, as I know you are. So, if that means anything to you, I would be I totally feel like the board would be in support of that. Okay, any other questions or?
Absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth with
Okay.
support of the basement situation at the elementary school. Can we get a little update on the basement? Is there still water in it?
We have removed the water. We've
Okay.
got a pump that's pulling the water out. It was just over there on Monday, and there I didn't see any water in the basement. But our maintenance crew has done a great job of creating some systems to help get it through the rainy weather. And I can maybe invite Joe to come up to the podium and
thank you,
provide some more detail.
Great, thank you, Andy.
So as the basement at the elementary school, the maintenance guys put down a pump, and the water was just coming in so fast it couldn't keep up. So what they did is they improved they upgraded the pump and improved the effluent, the discharge hose where the water goes out, and that improved it. But there was still some leakage that we weren't anticipating, but it turned out to be okay as far as the rains go.
Okay. And it dries out. It's drying out. Okay.
It's drying out now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was actually going to ask, what is the basement used for?
It's the basement right now. It contains mostly there's a server down there. There's also some storage.
That's right.
Yep, and there's in the area it's a lower pit down below that used to be that led out to the sewer and storm drainage, and that's what's been blocked.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I have a quick roof question. With the age of the building and it's kind of okay, I'm gonna start again. Its historic significance, do you think there'll be any problems with the type of roof you select? Is there any entanglement with like the Historical Society that the building, or am I way off base on that question?
No, that's a very good question. Actually, with roof renovation, it's not a concern because it's anticipated that you're going to have to replace roofs and so forth. And so, for example, we evaluated that possibility when we replaced this roof a couple of years ago, and it wasn't an issue. We were able to replace with what we wanted to do.
Okay, thank you. So tonight was just information, just to and ask questions. So we will stay tuned, as they say.
And I do have some items for consideration for approval this evening relative to this work.
Correct, which is moving right on, right, to the next, which is B, 13B. So I'm just going to call on you again, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And so indeed, this evening I am asking the board to consider approving the scope and budget for the elementary school roof project based on the information presented in the previous item.
Okay. Is there anyone via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, questions? Okay. No. one clarifying question that you had me, we're thinking about project management, and you talked about the HVAC happening after the fact. So are any HVAC units located on the roof at the elementary school?
Yes, there are, and there's, I think, 27 around the building. Are all, sorry, Joe, are all 27 attached to the roof?
Excuse me. At the elementary school, all the HVAC units are on the roof, and there's 27 units that need to be replaced.
So, but what we're not doing that in this with the roof. So right now we're just going to they'll come off the roof while the roof is being done and be put back on the roof.
They won't need to remove any part of that. They're doing the tiles on the outside and some of the wells, so they can just stay in place. And then when the new units come up, we put new HVAC units. They just go right in place. They just remove them, and put them right.
Perfect. Okay, great. I just wanted to think like if this was putting the cart before the horse or something like that. So
There is an advantage to doing both of them at the same time.
Sure.
If you have the capacity to do it.
Right. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. That answers my question. Okay, so is there a motion to? Sorry, because I might let my. Oh, go ahead.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Joe, so this is to replace the roof and the downspouts, but I've also heard that there's drainage issue underneath where the downspouts feed.
Where the downspouts come down, they.
Can you speak to that a bit?
They go down to the storm drain system, which
Storm
has
drains. That's the word I was looking for.
collapsed.
Okay.
Which has collapsed. So now there's nowhere for that water to go.
So can I ask why we're not including that in the scope?
If I may, I actually was speaking with John Delana, our construction manager, and I believe he's on the call also and can answer questions, but he and I were
Perfect.
talking about that this morning. And that's outside of the scope of work, but it would be included in the water system and the basement scope of work that we were talking about.
We have a caller. We're so excited.
Perfect. Thank you. That's great.
And perhaps we can, John, did you have anything to add to that? This is John Delana,
yeah, we
our
know John.
construction
Good to see John.
consultant.
Yeah, hi, good to be seen. Thank you for having me tonight. Yeah, so I think what we're doing as part of this project is we're going to bring the downspouts down and daylight them because that system is collapsed and compromised under the building. There needs to be some additional research as far as what's happening there. Obviously, there are sections of that line of the drain that's been collapsed. There may also be high water table and some waterproofing that needs to take place there. So at some point, we'll have to connect those into a rebuilt system.
But that's not happening at the same time. It doesn't sounds like it.
That's not happening at the same time, and for the simple reason is because there needs to be more research and investigation into what exactly is happening underneath the building.
Okay.
Why we're getting all that water.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna make no other questions, right? And I'm sorry because my script is missing, and I'm such a stickler for my script, so I'm kind of going through it. But we're gonna make a motion, is what we're gonna do. Do we have a motion to approve the concept scope for the work with a budget not to exceed $1.7 million for the St. Helena Elementary School roof?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great. Ms. Magical will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. It's crazy how you kind of get used to, like, you would think it would be just natural to me to say that. Okay, we're going to move on to items 14, which under business operations. A is review and consider approval. Did we just? No, we didn't. Of a transfer of $2 million from Fund 01 to Fund 40. Yes. Please, Miss Sandy Stubbs.
Thank you. And per the presentation the board heard earlier, I'm requesting that the board approve a transfer of $2 million from Fund 01 to fund $850,000 of which will be used towards the elementary school roof renovation project, and the remaining balance will be used for the other 2023 high priority projects, which may now include a little shift to address the basement over at the elementary school.
Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the transfer of $2 million from Fund 01, the general fund, to Fund 40 Special Reserve for Capital Outlay as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks for all the work that's been done on that. Okay, item B, review and consider approval of a fee proposal with Beam Professionals for design services related to the St. Helena Elementary School roof replacement project. Whew. Okay, Andy.
Thank you. And Beam Professionals works under the PBK umbrella, and the board may recall we have an agreement, a master agreement with PBK for architectural services. Beam Professionals also did our design work for the Vintage Hall roof replacement project, and they did a wonderful job with that. And so I would recommend that the board approve the proposal from Beam Professionals for design services associated with the elementary school roof project.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the fee proposal with Beam Professional for design services related to the Shees roof replacement project as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carries. 14C, approval of the public disclosure of cost saving certification for the STRS Early Retirement Program Incentive Program.
Thank you. And Erica, could you pull up the analysis document? The negotiated agreement that we have with the St. Helena Teachers Association requires us to offer the 2-year STRS retirement incentive this year, provided that we can demonstrate savings. And this provides certificated employees who wish to retire this year with 2 additional years of service credit that's factored into their pension calculation. And so to that end, the board approved a resolution during the October board meeting, opening up a window for retirement from May 1st through July 31st of this year, with irrevocable letters of retirement due January 11th. And so we did receive 6 letters from members, 5 certificated employees, and 1 classified employee who is a member of STRS. And so I conducted that cost analysis and determined that we can indeed demonstrate approximately $260,000 in savings over a 5-year period. And so we anticipate then that the county will approve our application for this early retirement system and then forward this on to STRS. And I am going to be recommending, too, that we use unspent funds at the end of this year to pay for the total cost of this program, which would be $776,000, so that we can avoid the interest, which would, if we were to do the 8-year deferred payment plan on this program, we would be paying upwards of $258,000. So the last time we offered this incentive, we paid in one big lump sum. And then the time previous to that, we paid it out over 2 years. And so this year, again, I would recommend using unspent funds at the end of this year, which otherwise would go into the reserve to pay off this plan.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay, trustees, any questions about this agenda item? No. Andy, thanks for always doing the analysis as well. And it obviously seeing what the interest would be almost just reflects what the savings is, so it doesn't seem to make much sense. So appreciate the work on that. Is there a motion to approve the public disclosure of cost savings certification for the STRS Early Retirement Incentive Program as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carries. Item D is the approval of the same public disclosure of cost savings certification. Why am I having a hard time with that? for the PERS Classified Early Retirement Incentive Program. Andy, please, you talk.
Thank you. And similar to the certificated retirement incentive, this retirement incentive was negotiated with CSEA for this year, and it provides a 2-year retirement incentive through CalPERS, which is a retirement system for our classified staff. And in this case, the cost analysis revealed that the savings over a 5-year period would be approximately $303,000, and the cost would be $162,000. And CalPERS did not publish an interest rate that I could find, but you do have to pay interest also, and so I would also propose that the board approve this with the plan for us to use our unspent funds at the end of the year to pay this off in one lump sum as well.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the public disclosure of cost saving certification for the PERS Early Retirement Incentive Program as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item E is consider approval to schedule a board study session to review information from a potential energy consultant. Ms. Stubbs, please.
Thank you. And a little bit about the history associated with this item. The board has looked at the possibility of implementing a solar array project or other energy conservation projects in the past. However, in the past, they were not feasible either due to a cost savings analysis and then, of course, due to the pandemic and capacity and so forth. And last year, when we were in a place to revisit this, we worked with the Business Operations Committee, who met and discussed this really over the course of a whole year. And at the end of the year, they gave consensus support to for the district to go out and look for an independent consultant to assist us with these projects again. And we don't have to put out an RFP or an RFQ for this type of professional services. And so I wanted to meet with and learn a little bit more about a local consultant, Gopal Shankar, whose company is Recolt Energy in Napa, and he has a very good reputation. He's worked with the Napa County Office of Education and Napa Valley Unified, and so I spoke with somebody from the Napa County Office of Education about his work. He has a lot of local experience and is trying to build kind of a county-wide initiative around energy conservation. So we met, and he did an analysis for us, and it was such a deep and complex analysis that what I wanted to do was ask the board if you wanted to direct me to schedule a study session so that you could review his work and possibly continue contracting with him to be our energy consultant for possible solar array projects and other renewable energy projects in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, any questions on this agenda item?
No, but I would be in favor of a study session. I would appreciate more information.
Yeah. Yes, go
I
ahead.
would just say I would highly recommend him as well. He's a good local individual.
Correct. I
Very
agree.
talented.
And I do think it is time for us to really revisit this because we have heard from students who have got up here who push us for solar, and we know there's community members who often wonder why doesn't St. Helena Unified have solar anywhere? And there's reasons for that, but it'd be nice to have a comprehensive study to see, what is possible and what other sources of energy could benefit our school district. So I think you have consensus to go ahead and find a date to study a study session and put a date together. Get maybe a little bit loopy here behind the microphone, but okay. Is there a motion to approve a study session to review information from a potential energy consultant as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so now we're on 14F. Board review and public comment, updated safe return to in-person instruction. Andy, this is all you. She's bringing it home.
I truly am tonight. It's a written report this way.
Yes, it is a written report. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Okay, this was an information item only, obviously. Okay. Item G, contracts over $25,000 for January 2023. Mrs. Andy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. And we have 4 for the board to consider approval this evening. The first is with All County Flooring. And the board may recall with the first interim report, we approved an increase to transfer more funds this year to Fund 14. And so we would be using deferred maintenance funds to cover the cost of this flooring. This will occur over the primary school. We've got 3 floors in there that have some carpeting that we had the same issue before with some non-toxic adhesive that was used, but it causes an odor. So we want to go ahead and replace that. And it's time to replace that anyway. It's 8 to 10 years old. So one of them has actually been replaced because they found the time in their schedule to do it over winter break. And so now we're asking for the board to approve the full amount, and the other 2 rooms will be scheduled after approval this evening. And then the second contract would be with the Boys and Girls Club. And we've been working on an updated MOU with the club for some time, and I'm very excited about this one because we're using some new funding, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant funding, to pay for the club to offer enrichment classes, and this would be a 2-year agreement, so it would cover us through June 30th, 2024, providing for that longer kind of 9-hour day that we want for our young ones through that funding, which is great. And we can also use those funds to pay for the registration fees for eligible students that go to the club. And then finally, we would be using these funds and this agreement to have some of our paraeducators potentially providing tutoring at the club as well. So it's a pretty comprehensive agreement, then also update some of the other terms of room use and so forth. The last 2 are with special education agencies to support students who have transferred into the district. The first being with Sonoma County Office of Education, and the second being with Spectrum. And so these students have non-public school placements in their individual education plans, and we did leave a cushion in the budget to address placements of this nature, and so it won't require a budget transfer, I'm happy to say. And so with that, I would ask the board to approve the 4 contracts over $25,000.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
Actually, I have one question about the Boys and Girls Club contract. If students want to participate in those enrichment classes that are not currently members of Boys and Girls Club, how does that work? So I've had this happen, and it includes a bus ride now, maybe, for some students, and then paying a fee to attend those. I just want to, because I think that would be useful to share out how that would work.
So in the past, we had the city of St. Helena paid for, and they were able to do it at the school sites, but they were no longer able to do the enrichment classes for us for a time. So then we contracted last year with the Boys and Girls Club and continued that for this year. So unfortunately, because of that, the students would have to become members of the club. However, if they meet certain eligibility requirements, we would also pay for their registration fee. And of course, they would be able to take our bus over to the club.
Okay, great. And then I'm also just curious, I believe I heard
mention of adding enrichment for middle school level. I don't know, because maybe there's already too many things going on after school based upon what Principal Cox said with sports, but I don't know what the participation rate is for the teen club anymore, to be honest, and I'm just curious if that's something to look into also.
That the middle schoolers are not included in this, but I can certainly have a conversation, and I have to look about the provisions of that particular pot of funding.
Yeah.
Thank
But I
you.
can certainly look
Okay.
into that.
Thank you.
I had one question about the flooring contract, and it's just a general question because it's only a 1-year warranty on that carpet, or the flooring, I should say. And it is a school. It kind of. So I'm wondering, are warranties, are they ever negotiable, or is like what they, you know what I mean? Just because it seems like 1 year in a school setting is not super long. And I just ask this for conversation, not because I'm putting you on the spot to say, go get them. I'm just, wondering if that can be when you negotiate contracts or get a contract, if they ever extend a little time.
I don't know that that's too common. However, they may offer maybe a discounted purchase of an extended warranty, possibly.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah,
So-
just kind of was thinking, just thinking it wasn't very long, but that was my question. Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve the contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carried. Item 15A is our future agenda items. Obviously, we have the workshops tomorrow and Saturday. And then you'll see our next regular meeting on February 15th of what is on there.
We also have the data summit. I know it's not listed, but we have
Right, the data
study
summit.
session as well in
Yeah,
February.
it's a Monday, I forget, it's February. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, I was, yeah. Yeah, I was going to bring that up actually next. So we did get the we had 2 public comments at the beginning for items not on the agenda, asking for, review of cell phone use. I mean, it was specific to the high school, but I think as a board, we need to just look at the overriding policy. We can ask the principals to submit their, the individual to you, and you can provide that information based on a school site. But I think our level of review needs to be at the actual overall policy. So do I need at least 3 of us to support that being looked at? One, yes?
I would agree.
Okay.
What does being looked at mean?
So we would basically be provided with the policy to see what everybody, and then to see if we could sit with the superintendent and say, well, maybe this policy does need to be tweaked. Does it mean speak to your, speak with the principals and see if anything needs to be adjusted? Is it reflective of current practices? Is it things like that? I mean, we can then make suggestions. It would go through a policy committee. That would be my understanding, that it would go through a policy committee to be vetted by more than just the 5 of us.
Because I know certain teachers at the high school have policies, so I guess I maybe might want more information from the high school about what they currently do, what the flexibility is, what works and what doesn't work. And we'll get a student voice, is my guess.
Suggest that it's, instead of starting with the policy, that we bring a report back on our current practices.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. I just, but I want to keep our focus where it belongs, because not on the, not how the high school operates and not how the middle school operates. I want to keep it on the focus of what we have, what our governance role is and all of that. But I do think that those 2 parents probably speak for more than just the 2 of them. So I think it's worth exploring a bit more.
Okay.
Do you have enough?
And
Do you
maybe-
feel like?
What I was going to say, and maybe it's just what the district, the high school, not just high school, what is the policy? Is it consistent through the schools, or how does it change? It'd be interesting to see what each because sadly enough, probably by the elementary school, you need a policy as well.
Right.
Hopefully not the primary kids, but I don't know.
Yeah, does that sound like clear enough
I have
direction
enough to
for you?
work on, yeah.
Okay,
And
okay,
Just a reminder, I'm also bringing back the DOC. That's obviously not
correct.
listed.
Right.
Okay. And yes, and
So
then,
just,
go ahead.
just to clarify, the cell phone policy will be an agenda item that we will review it publicly here, or how's that going to work?
Well, I think what I kind of envision is maybe we get some information sent to us, and if anything, it doesn't get put on for February. Maybe it's a March meeting that we
Yeah.
put it on.
Future agenda.
Because maybe we'll have time for all of us to review the policy. If you need to meet with the superintendent, or and then have meetings with, if you want to meet with Mr. Cinto and understand, things like that. That gives us enough time, and then we can, if there's any changes that are deemed necessary to the policy, again, it would probably have to come onto the agenda so that we could say, take it to committee and get the input of the committee, and then take it from there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Not yet, no.
It's good.
I understand that there's a process behind it that I don't understand yet. So.
Yeah, no, okay, well,
Yes.
fair enough. But there is, it's all about process, right? And getting eyes on it and getting the information on it, so.
I think we will appreciate the process and have more questions.
Okay, yes, and then the DOC 3 through 8 caps, and encourage trustees to, meet with Mr. Aurelio as needed to be prepared for our February meeting for that.
Yep.
Okay, so now our 16A is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion, I can't talk tonight. I make that motion.
Yes, motion, okay.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting ended at 9 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here.